Okay, today's daf is daf lamed. We are going to start daf chavtes amud beis, 7 lines from the bottom, where we're going to start to talk about many incidents throughout the next few daf till around lamed daled amud beis. So it's quite extensive. The next 5 bletter are going to be incidents, and we're going to learn halachas based on those incidents. Let's jump into it. Ahu damar le'lechaver. There was a person who told his friend, "My boy is Bahai Besa. What are you doing in this house? It belongs to me." Amalei, he answers him back, "Minachzavinte. I bought it from you, and I had it for over 3 years, and therefore I got rid of my shtar." Amalei, you know what the original owner of the Marikama tells him? "Ano b'shchune gavoy havoi. I was residing in the inner rooms." Gavoy means inside, baroi means outside. I was in the inner rooms, and I would go through the hallway of where you're saying you bought it, and I would go through. So therefore, he's basically trying to say is that because of that reason, he didn't see any reason to protest, because he's walking right into his house every single day. So picture a hallway. I guess there's rooms on the right and the left. That's where he was living, the living room and everything. And then he would go all the way to the inner rooms, to the back of the house, the Marikama. And
for 3 years?
Always. It's been like that for always. And he's saying, that's why I didn't protest, because I used to walk into the house every single morning. And he's tidying, I bought the outside. Okay. So the halach is as follows. Also the commander of Nachman. They went in front of Rav Nachman, and Amr le zil beror achilasach. You have to go prove now. Beror achilasach means you should go prove your exclusive use of the house. You have to bring witnesses that Yitaka lived alone, and the original Marikama, was not living inside this house. Why? Because Rav Nachman held it's no different than any chazaka. Every chazaka, who does the burden of proof go on? The person who's trying to take it away from the Marikama. Now, therefore, if you cannot prove that you owned or took the entire premises, you had the whole entire property, so you're not proving that you are having a chazaka, because in order to have a chazaka, you need to be on the whole property. Okay. However, it's very clear, the Rashbam adds, he says, that we're talking about in the last Rashbam of the Amid, he talks about Pasha Asa, Pasha Etir. He says, Avada, we're not talking about where the person... Come in. We're not talking about where the person is saying, being minded that he bought it from you. Because if the scenario is that I was the one, and he has a chazaka for 3 years, and I'm moideh that I bought it from you. However, I have a chazaka, and I don't have the shtar anymore. Then there's such a thing called pesha asar, pesha heter. I'm the one who's moideh that you're the marikama, right? Because I could produce edim that I'm here already in this house for a few years. However, in a case where we're talking about where we know he was the marikama, and you're trying to establish your chazaka, and he's answering back, I was in that house. The halach is you must produce witnesses that not only were you there, that you used the whole entire property exclusively. Yeah, we're still in Chavtes Amid Beis, the first.
Obviously, one didn't use what the others, where the other was.
Correct, but he's trying to say he owned the whole house.
The whole property.
Right. So the answer to that is you basically have to let it be a chazaka, at least on the outside houses, right? So the answer to that is, I think, twofold. First of all, I think he's saying it doesn't sound like there's a dispute. If the reality was that you were in the inside, and I agree that you were in the inside, you could say that. Not for peking, it won't be a chazaka, because as long as I have a valid reason why I did not be meicha, and it makes sense, then you lost your whole chazaka. The whole time is I saw you were meicha. Person should know that if he's going to be using other parts of the house, he should hold on to the shtar longer. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like it was a misunderstanding. If the incident really happened the way it was, it does sound like there was a misunderstanding that the person thought, okay, he has a chazaka for 3 years, right? And the owner thought he didn't have to protest, and Itaka didn't.
3 years media that he bought it for only 3 years?
No, he's in the house at least over 3 years, gets a chazaka. However, that's only if he's not meicha. He's saying, it's only that he's not only if he's not meicha, he has to be a reason that he wasn't meicha.
What's meicha mean?
Protest.
Protest?
Yeah. So the original owner, saw no need to protest because he was living with him. He obviously was living in the inner rooms. But since he was living in the same property, he didn't see any need to protest. However, Dr. of Nachman, you're the mitzi, because he's the marikama, the person living in the inside rooms. So you're trying to be mitzi that property away from him. Therefore, you have to bring a chazaka, an edim, and a chanami. It sounds like in a case, I'm not sure what would be the halacha. If he tainas to him, I only bought the schos for the rooms I'm in. And he's able to prove it with edim. Then I'm not sure what the halacha is. You hear the question? Maybe this is what, Jack, this is what maybe you were asking.
Part of the house.
Right. What if he's saying, you're right, you live in the back, but I bought the front, and the star says the front of the house. I'm not sure if Rav Nachman's going to say, Zil bara chilascha, because I am proving my chilasa. Okay. It's not as clear to me what would be the halacha. Okay. Amalei Rava, hachi dina. Is this really the halacha? The burden of proof should be on who? On the marikama, not the occupant. Why? Because according to the Rava, did I live there for 3 years? Everyone agrees. There's Adam see me walking in and out of this house for the past 3 years. You ask anybody, what is the presumptive innocence? What would you think the person he lived himself? Why would I think otherwise? So let's establish the reality is we have Adam that you were there for 3 years. Okay, so now you have a chazaka. Now once there's a chazaka taking place, you want to come and destroy that chazaka. So you're now the Maitzim Chaver L'Rai. Rav and Rav Nachman is basically, the argument becomes, was the chazaka already established in such a scenario? According to Rav it was, according to Rav Nachman it wasn't. So Frek Demar is going to bring a brisa, a stira from a different maisa. Rami de Rava de Rava, Rami de Rav Nachman de Rav Nachman. Rava says in this scenario, Maitzim Chaver L'Rai, we're going to find an incident exactly fraker, the opposite. Dahu, we're on Lamed Amad Aleph. There was a person who told this fellow, Kol nichse de bei bar sisen mazbina lach. There was this person who had many, many properties that he bought it from a very, very wealthy person. His name was Bar Sisen. He went and he wrote a shtar and he says, I am selling you all the properties that I bought from Bei Bar Sisen. However, there was one property that was called, this is what his complaint is, the person, the seller, saying there was one property that its name was Bei Bar Sisen, same name. However, it wasn't bought from the fellow, the Bei Bar Sisen. Okay. It was unknown. It was just because that was his name, because somehow throughout the years it ended up turning like that. So this follows. I'm selling you all the property that belongs to the estate of Bar Sisen. There was a certain land. It was for sure called the Bei Bar Sisen. The question became, was it really bought from the Bei Bar Sisen? Or it was not? Okay. Zok the Gemara, Amalei, hi, lav the Bei Bar Sisen. So the seller quickly pounded and said, oh, this land, it wasn't, I never bought it from the Bei Bar Sisen. We used to call it because the properties look similar, or maybe it was near it for whatever reason. It's simply that was what it was called. Asuk made Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman, they went to Rav Nachman. Ukma biyada the lekeach. Rav Nachman said it's up to the seller to prove it. So the Gemara is understanding right here. On Rav Nachman, it's already a stira. Here, Rav Nachman, what's he doing? He's taking it away from the meicher. It's like Rav Nachman taking it away from over there, where the person sitting in the property. And then the kasha is on Rava. Amalei Rava, Dina Hachi, Maitzim Chaver Alavaraya. You're the buyer, unless you could prove it with 100% clarity, 100% vadai that it was the property of Bei Bar Sisen. You can't take it away from me. Mara says no. Kasha the Rava. Oh, so Mara says Kasha the Rava, and Kasha the Nachman, right? And the basic understanding of the Gemara, it's a stira. Rav over there tells me the case of Shchuna Gavaya Maitzim Chaver Alavaraya. And therefore the Marikama has to bring the proof. And here it sounds like the Marikama of the Bei Bar Sisen does not have to. He's the one who doesn't have to bring the proof. Amalei for from the Mara the Rabba like Kasha. No, Rabba is not arguing. Rabba is the exact same scenario of his halach of what? There in the case of the Bar Sisen, who's the one occupying the property right now as we speak? The Meicher. So it's a mitzvah b'chaver al raya. Rava says, I say the same thing by Shchuna Gavai. By Shchuna Gavai, you're like a Meicher because right now you're the one occupying the property. You're muchzak. Let's use the words muchzak. Zot Rava, in the case of the Beibar Sisin, who's the muchzak? The seller. In the case of Shchuna Gavai, who's the muchzak? The person who's originally the lekeach. So it's about the muchzak. So that's what we say mitzvah b'chaver al raya. Acha, lekeach. Therefore, it's not a stira. They're both consistent. It's all about who's the muchzak. Now the Gemara says, "Der Rav Nachman nami loy kasha." Why? Kivon the Amalei debei bar sisin. Since in the second case, the seller told him, "I'm selling you all properties debei bar sisin." Oh, mikraya debei bar sisin. It's called debei bar sisin. Therefore, what? A lady day rami galuye de lav bar sisin. Rav Nachman hold who is the incumbent upon, who has to prove it? The seller. Why? Let's be real. If it moves like a duck, it talks like a duck, it swims like a duck, everything's like, it's probably a duck, right? You ever heard of that concept, Julie?
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. It's called Beibar Sisin. It wasn't there. What more do you want? It's not such a valid way out. Okay. The Labar Sisin, he has to prove. Hacha le yehe, the case of the first case, Beshchuna Gavai, Ella de Nakat Shtara. The person who's the occupant today, he's no different than a star that he's pulling out. That's what Chazaka helps. Chazaka makes it a star. What happens when I pull out a star? Milay Amrinale. What do we tell him, the muchzik in that property? Kayim Shtarcha v'kum b'nichse. So validate your star, and then you get the property. Therefore, what? Just like when you have a star that's disputed, you need to validate it. So too over here, the chazaka itself is disputed, right? Because that's the whole argument. I'm tinying, I have a chazaka. That's the person who's in there now. Zokta Marikama, no, you don't have a chazaka. Why? Because I was in the house. So Zokta Rav Nachman, you never got to point A. The Bir Machlekes Rav and Rav Nachman in the scenario of Shchuna Gavoy, which means the inner rooms, is, did we establish point A or not? According to Rav, it's established. Now, once it's established, you have to prove it. Otherwise, according to Rav Nachman, you never even established a chazaka. Okay, let's continue. There was a person who told his fellow friend, "My boy is by Besa. What are you doing in this house? It's my house." I bought it from you. Not only that, and I've used it for 3 years. I don't know what you want from me. The Marikama tells him, we're going to learn the sugya later in Lamed Ches. Bishuki Baroy. I was traveling to China. I was going to all these places, to these faraway markets during these 3 years, and I had no way of knowing that you were occupying this property. Because we're going to see in the Mishnah Lamed Ches and Aleph, it's going to talk about that you can only establish a chazaka when the original owner was in a scenario where he could have been aware that he knew about it, and he still did not make a macha. He still did not protest. However, if a person goes abroad, then it's not a question. If someone goes abroad to a different country, then you cannot establish a chazaka because he has a right to say, I never knew about it. However, the Gemara talks about Avada. The Gemara is going to talk Yehuda Legalil from different scenarios, that Avada doesn't have to be that he's staying in Muncie specifically. Even if someone goes to Lakewood, to regular locations, it's possible to make a chazaka. However, if someone disappears to a very far place, you go to North Korea, there's very hardly is any communication going on over there, and then he comes back in a few years, there's no question that you don't have a chazaka, and you should have known to hold on to the star. So it comes that when you throw away that star, you have to make a checklist in your head. Did he know about it? Did he not know about it? Is it reasonable? Right? Before you throw out that conscious decision of throwing out the star, especially according to the Ksei Sacheshin, we learned that it's at the Kana de Rabbanan, that you don't hold on to your star forever, then before you throw it out, you make it. According to the Rabbanan, it might be a little difficult to understand. He just says after 3 years, a person just eventually loses his star. Okay.
This star is something you have to take.
The lekech
It's not going to like a get where Bezdin keeps it.
Correct. It's in your property.
It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility to hold on. Right. According to Ramban, we learned yesterday is that it's your responsibility to hold on, but you have a taina of achri shtarcha. He has a taina, why weren't you meicha? That's what it goes on. Okay. Amalei, the occupant tells him, Va'isli sadi, I have witnesses that can say the Choshat every year have a asis tlasin yom. You'd come in for 30 days, and therefore you should have known, right? I brought witnesses. We saw you in the shtibel. I'm late tlasin yom shukav terin. No, the 30 days that I came back, I was very preoccupied with all my business dealings, and I did not know you were living in that house. Okay.
So this is an absentee landlord, in other words.
He had another house. So this is talking about a person that had more than one house. He was a very, very successful, busy businessman. He would go away to foreign countries all the time. However, he would come back for 30 days.
So
During those 30 days, he did not live there. He lived in Rashbam says this. He lived in a different house. Mm-hmm. You have to say that because where else was he in that house? So he brings down two mahalachim over there. But we're going to stick with the easy mahalach. The Rashbam says, okay. Rashbam says, "Kagon sheyesh loy bayis acher ba'iseir." We're talking about again, make it easy. He had another house. Okay. So what is the halacha? Amarava oven inish. It's very fair assessment to say the chol plus in yaimin tar b'shuk. It's normal for a man. He's only coming in for 30 days. That 30 days is extremely, extremely precious. It's like someone who lives in Eretz Yisrael and he comes for the summer, to do a lot of business dealings. He's going to be very busy during those 30 days. Okay, another scenario. There was a person who told this fellow friend, my boys by Harara, what are you doing in this land? The occupant tells the Marikama, me planya zavinta. I bought it from Reuven. The Reuven told me he bought it from you. Now what? This is getting a little more sticky. Right? Now let's clarify this. We're not talking about, we're going to try to go through, there's a big Rashbam on Lamed of Beis, and when we learned this in Yeshiva, we spent more than I would say a good few weeks on that Rashbam, Lamed of Beis. I think it was like 6 mahalchim going on over there. It's extremely extensive. We're going to try to go a little stroll right through it. But basically, we're not talking about he has a chazaka. My boys by Aramalei, Miplan is event I bought it from Reuven.
Who has the chazaka?
He does not have he's not there for 3 years. I'm going to tell you the scenario. I pull out a star. I said I bought it from Reuven. Reuven told, and I'm not there for 3 years, but I pulled the star. Reuven told me that he bought it from you, Julie. So says, this guy Reuven is the biggest scam artist. I don't know what you want. He's going around telling people he owns it and sells it to you. I feel very bad, but you were scammed.
Lucrative business.
Right, that's exactly. He's making a lot of money off this. And not only that, he disappeared. But you're admitting to me that you don't have a chazaka. You're pulling at the shtar that says you bought it from Reuven, and everyone knows I'm bringing Adam down the Marikama. There's no dispute that he were the Marikama. Now what? So Amalei, the Marikama tells him, At lav kamaydis, daharaditi. You just admitted to me a second ago that Reuven told you that he bought it that it was mine. Right? The at loizamintmine. You're not arguing that I don't know you. Zil, get out of my property. Lav bal dvarim didiyat. I'm the original owner. He is running a scam. Have a wonderful day. You must leave this property. Amarava Dina Ka'amarle. He's taka right, and therefore he can evict Nebuch. He was a victim to a scam, but he can leave his property. I want to go through this Rashbam. Let's go through note 4. It's a very extensive Rashbam. Lamed Omed Beis, very Kishmak Rashbam. He's going to go through. They're going to go through this Rashbam. Okay, note 4. In the present case, this challenger had no witnesses to testify that he once owned the land. Okay, it's very interesting. However, this can be seen from the fact that he was forced to claim to the occupant, aren't you admitting to me that I once owned the land? If there were indeed witnesses to that effect, the challenger would not have to rely on to the admission of the occupant. Nevertheless, Rava ruled of what? Haidas Baldin is Kamei Dami. So you were 100% establishing that I'm the Marikama, right? By you admitting to me. And since you're not bringing any evidence that you are the rightful owner, right? You don't have a chazak, you don't have anything, right? I feel very bad, but you lose control of your land, right? Now the shtar that you bought it from Reuven, the scammer, it's worthless. There's no raya, there's no proof whatsoever that Reuven's not running a scam business. In a Chanami, the Rashbam says you could sue Reuven the scammer, but that's not our point of the sugya. Now, the Gemara we just said is discussing a case where he does not establish a 3-year chazak. Okay. Not only that, even if he did establish his 3-year chazaka, it still wouldn't help because his whole chazaka is based on a premise of a scam, and he's admitting that. However, the Rashbam adds that if he would have a chazaka, then there are 2 sets of circumstances that would have helped him to stay in control retain control of the land. Scenario 1 is, he could have said, I bought this karka from Reuven, and don't tell me Reuven's a scammer, because in front of me I saw him buy the land from you. So in such a scenario, there's such a thing called migu. Migu, I'm the one admitting that you're the marikama, correct? Because there's no edim that you were the marikama. So I'm the one admitting that you're the marikama. I know for a certainty that he bought it from you. Don't tell me Reuven's a scammer, because I saw him pay you. And I saw the whole transaction. And that's when I bought it for a little higher, a little more. He flipped the deal on me, but I saw you buy it. Therefore, there's such a thing called migu. Migu says, whether it's kechataina, malashakar, I'm not going into the amkas of migu, but migu tells me you're believed with such a taina.
You're believed.
You're believed. We're going to get into migu a little deeper on tomorrow's daf. Okay.
So the original owner is not going to own it anymore.
Correct. Even though I agree you're original owner, but I saw him, and I have a chazaka. Remember this. I have a chazaka. So I could have said, jump in the lake. I don't know who you are. I have a chazaka, right? I'm not talking. As long as I can produce witnesses and I'm here for 3 years, you weren't protesting, it's mine. I could have said I bought it from you. That's my migu. Could have easily said I bought it from you. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2, he would be able to, if he could prove that Reuven, what he's trying to say is a scam or the Marikama, lived there for 1 day. If he lived there for 1 day, what it does is it shifts the burden of proof suddenly, very interesting, to the challenger that he never sold the land. 1 day helps. Okay.
Hold on, to who?
If Reuven the scammer, that's what the original owner is trying to say, he could produce, the lakeach, the one who's in there, can produce witnesses that the Reuven, the scammer, was there for 1 day. What it does, that 1 day helps, it shifts the whole challenge. Then now you have to prove, Reuven, the Marikama has to prove, not Reuven, the Marikama has to prove that Reuven was not a scammer. That's the scenario. In a scenario, I have a chazaka. However,
And that's if he lived there.
if you lived there, it only helps when I have a chazaka. If I didn't have a chazaka, even if you prove that you were there for 1 day, it doesn't make a difference. Because the middleman is not able to prove, right? The middleman is not able to prove that he has no shtar that he was there. Okay. So again, if he established a 3-year chazaka, let's just underline it, 3-year chazaka, he would be believed with migu of saying bifnenu, and then if he could show him that the person who sold him the land was even 1 day, what it does is it shifts the burden. That's the 2 cases. Okay. So just to say it outside as a summary, we're talking about the Markama has no witnesses, which makes it a das baldin kemei edim dami. Therefore, he loses his chos. But we're talking about we did not establish a 3-year chazaka. If he did establish a 3-year chazaka, it helps in 2 scenarios. Okay, that's more or less the Rashbam. But we have to continue going forward. It would be in a chanami if we would have the time to spend on this. It would be very pleasant, but we must continue. There's another incident. Person told his fellow friend, "My boys, Bahai Ara. What are you doing in this land?" Again, very similar scenario. That he said, "I bought it from Reuven." That's Reuven the scammer. Planya Gazalnu. Everyone knows about it. He's the biggest scam artist out there. This is what the punchline is. I came to you, I called you up, I said, "Shimon, how are you? Can I come down with my team? I want to discuss a certain purchase of a field." And you told me, "Zilzav, and go buy it." Now, let's be real. If you own the land, why in the world will you tell me that it's a good thing, it's a good deal to buy it? I'm a sly businessman. You know what I did that for? Hasheni Noyechli. Harishan Koshin man. Reuven the scammer, he's a mafiosi. He has litigation, he has money, he has lawyers. I can't deal with him. I feel very bad, but I'm a cunning, dangerous businessman. I fooled you into buying a scam. Because you're a very easy guy to beat in court. You're a weak person. This is what happened. Wow. So what is the halach? Is he believed the person? We're not going to go into Ein Adam Mesim Atzmai Rasha. Sounds like it's quite evil to do such I'm not sure if it's Aveira of Ein Adam Mesim Atzmai Rasha. I'm not going to go there, but he's basically saying, I conned you into doing a bad deal for my benefit. So is he believed or not?
That's Reuben.
That's it's Shimon. Reuben's the scammer. In our circle we called him Reuben the scammer. But he's saying, I convinced you to buy from Reuben even though Reuben was a scammer. Because it was my field. Okay. He purposely fooled it. Okay. So what is the halacha? It's credible. Wow. As long as, even if he established a 3 chazaka, as long as he's maida, right? As long as he's maida that he didn't again, he doesn't have a raya that he was there for one day, like we said earlier in the Rishbam, that he has to, in the scenario 2, there's if you have a chazaka, it helps if he was there for one day. Over here he doesn't have it. Okay. Wow. Okay. Come on, who is this like? Ka'adman, we find a similar scenario in Ksubis. Someone challenges a person for the field. The problem is the challenger himself is a witness on the current contract that Reuven is the scammer, let's say. Shimon, yeah, definitely. Reuven is the scammer. Shimon is the person who signed the contract that Levi bought it from Reuven. Now he signed the contract. He's the aid that he bought it from him. Adman Aimer, yes, a person could do that. Hasheni Noyachli Harishan Kashem, very type of similar scenario. That the reason why I'm doing that is because you're much easier to deal with. He's a very tough person. It's very complicated to be in litigation with him. Therefore, I was willing to sign it. Okay. Chachamim Aimer, no. By you signing on the deed, Ibeit eschusai. By you signing, you're indicating that what? They are no longer the owner of the field. So the question is, this is really the question. The question of the Gemara is, why is Rava following Adman? What is the halacha? Zaktar Shbam? The halacha is like who? The halacha is always like Chachamim. So what is going on? V'anan kaimelon. This is where Rashbam explains the kasha. V'anan kaimelon. V'parak karabanon. V'parak achad ksubas. Right? If you look at the Rashbam, that's his question. There, it's a machlekes adman or rabbanon. So it's a question of the Gemara. Fan for the Gemara, no. Even rabbanon is going to be moed over here. I feel tame rabbanon hasam in this scenario by the deed of a lemaisa. By you performing an action, it's much more of a thing that you're doing. It's common. You can find the person talking. When a person does talking and a person is willing to go and sign and willing to do a maisa, it's much stronger. Okay. That's how they explain it. Giving advice is much more reasonable. Let's go through 2 more incidents. What are you doing in this line? Amalei, Reuben's the scammer. Plani gazalnu. Amalei v'isli sadi. The asis ba'urta. You came to me last night. Va'amrli zamnan ali. And you literally asked me as a favor, sell me the land. And then only after you said, no, I'm not selling the land. The next morning you start running to court to complain. What happened? By you coming over to me last night to sell me the land is the biggest proof you weren't the owner. If you were the owner, why would you come over to me, approach me and say, can I buy the karka please for the asking going price? So Amalei, you know what he says? Is ba'in dinai, which means to say, I wanted to buy. I'm a retired guy. I can't deal with litigation. I can't deal with court. This land means a lot to me. I came over to you last night. I asked you, can I buy the karka? I'm willing to pay the value, even though, if you think about it, it's mine. However, the second you said no, I want my karka back, and the reason why I want my karka back belonged to my father and his Zayd and his Alta Zayd. It financially doesn't sound so much that it makes sense you're willing to pay double the price, but even, let's say financially, I'm willing not to litigate. However, if you're not willing to sell me the karka, I have no choice but to go to best. Okay. Merava Ovid Inish, the Zav and Dine. It's normal that a person will do that. He'll go to Bez, he'll try to just buy it out and not deal with litigation. Okay. Let's see one more case. My boys, what are you doing at my car? I bought it from so and so. So in this case, I established a chazak, and only then I threw up my shtar. The Markama says, I'm holding a shtar saying, this is the punchline. You're coming over to me. You're telling me I bought it from Reuven. You said, I asked you when. You tell me 3 years ago. Now this is very crucial. Let's stick with these words. You told me 3 years ago. You know what I do? I have Adam, or whatever it is, or even a shtar. I'm holding on to the shtar, not Adam, that says Reuven sold it to me how long ago? 4 years ago. So what comes out? I bought the karka, I left. It was only a year, so I wasn't worried about anyone touching the karka because I have a chazaka. He saw that I left the country for a year. He knew that no one really knew too much that I sold it to him, and he sold it to you again. So it's a bad deal. So you know what he answers? Amalei, mi savash ne chazaka. I didn't literally mean 3 years. Tlash ne kamina, tlash ne kamina. Shne chazaka tuva kamina. Which means to say is, the reason, I didn't mean literally, when I said the word 3, I didn't mean specifically, I didn't give you exact date. It would have made a difference if I would have said, I remember I bought it on December 1st, 2017. You didn't say it. I said I had it for 3 years. What's my statement that I said it for the word 3? I just wanted to tell you that I have a chazaka. If you would have asked me directly, what exactly the date you bought it, do you recollect? I bought it many years ago, way more than the 4 years. So if anything, what am I answering back? You were scammed 4 years ago, not me, because I have this karka for many, many years. And the Rava says as follows. And again, he's bringing Aiden to that, right? So he was just saying, I didn't realize that the number of 3 would cause me any issues. Therefore, I said that. Now, what's the chiddush over here? Just let's bring out the chiddush. The Rashbam says the chiddush is, we all know a concept that once you taina something, you can't retract what you said. Okay? There's a loch of ein zeh chayze v'tayim. Okay? So now the question is, avada v'avada. So if he said, I bought it December 1st, 2017, he cannot retract what he said. The only Gemara, the whole shaila in the Gemara is did he mean literally what he said, and therefore he can't retract? Or no, by saying 3 years or just to get you away, and therefore I'm not really chayze v'tayin. It's normal to use the word chazaka, but if you want to, now that there's a nafkamina, I'll tell you exactly when I bought it. Okay. And therefore it's not considered what? It's not considered a revision, rather just a clarification. Therefore it's not a problem. Okay, v'hani mili, let's clarify this. It's also quite pashut. The achala shava the kadam chazaka d'hayshtar lahach. It has to be that it was for 7 years. Like that, because you're tiny 4 years. What's 4 plus 3 is 7. Like that, I have, right, a chazak of 7 years. So all I need to bring, the Rashba, the other Rishon explain, all I need to really bring is that I have Adim, that I had it 3 years before you. And therefore it's not a problem of Ashes. Because if I could only, let's say, I had it for 6 years. What happens 2 years in? He went and sold it. That's the biggest macha. You should have known that he sold it to his friend. Therefore emerges that he was moiche, and you end up losing the karka. Yetzer Hashem, tomorrow we're going to pick up top of the Amud Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph.